Hi everyone, I'm Ethan Monsoor. I play Harold Hobbleton, otherwise known as Oscar Cord on D4. I just wanted, when I was first planning Harold and deciding how I wanted him to be in D4, my first concept for him was only out of play, which was I need to play whatever I'm good at. If I'm going to do this, I need to be somebody who can do a lot of weird voices and be funny and not be serious. Somebody who initially, when I first thought about him, would be very neutral, so I could the good things or the bad things. I could do whatever I felt like doing. I just wanted him to be very open. That was the biggest thing that I thought of. And I thought Bard would be the best choice for being a very open character, willing to do anything, that could do almost anything. Very few limits on what I would do, because I never know in the moment what I'm gonna decide is the right answer for me. Almost always wrong, though. Harold has changed and grown a tremendous amount from what I initially imagined. When I originally imagined him, like I said, he was very neutral, kind of a ratty, scummy character who, like, on the surface seems so nice and pleasant, but then as you peel back the layers, he ends up being kind of a scumbag who's in it for himself. And I realized very quickly that was not jiving well with the person I am out of play, and I was having a hard time staying ratty and scummy. And I thought to myself, there's not really like a bastion of good in this game, but I can't be Harold. And then he opened up a bag and fell inside, and he was stuck with a lawful good character for 6 years. And the first thought I had when I was like, at first I thought Harold was dead. I was like, well, there he goes. That was fun. But when he came back out of the bag, I thought to myself, nobody can spend 6 years with Orkira and come out a worse person. They'd have to be a better person in some way. And I think that was largely the biggest change for Harold, was kind of realizing, like, wow, you know, there is something to being good and a selfless person. And it also helped me out to play kind of cinch in on the character, because up to that point, I think that a lot of people would agree I was kind of lost on which direction to take him. Once that happened, it was just a straight shot forward. I knew chaotic good is where I'm going, and I'm going to stick with it. And, man, I'm really happy I did. So that would probably be the biggest change. Over the past 3 years, the pivotal moments that have shaped the character, I would say the biggest thing I can think of when I think of this was trying to trick the hag and getting the kids in trouble. Man, go back and watch that. I tell people all the time, go back and watch how miserable I look from that point forward in that episode. I was so upset. I lost sleep that night. And I thought to myself, you know, this is the essence of what makes a great story, is the realization that you care so much about these NPCs. They're not real, but they're real enough to you. It's like watching a movie and seeing your favorite character die and knowing, but now somehow it was your fault that character's dead. That one was a huge one. Obviously, like I mentioned earlier with the bag, that one was enormous. I think once Harold met Averin, and that was kind of the arc of Harold's discovering he has confidence in himself. When Averin came to him and said, the power isn't me, it's you at this point. You know, I barely have anything to do with it anymore. I think that was kind of an eye-opener for Harold. I think he'd be loath to admit it was Averin that helped him realize that he was capable of a lot more than he had thought up to that point. I think that was extremely pivotal, and I don't even think Todd realizes how pivotal it was. It was just kind of an offhanded comment, and I was just like, oh, that's true. And Harold would recognize this. And ever since then, I think Harold's been a lot more confident. Ready to fight. He's ready to take on the Harlequin. What would level 10 Harold say to level 1 Harold? Level 10 Harold would say to level 1 Harold, you're not going to believe any of this. You really aren't. But here are the 5 things you need to know about the future. 1, yes, you can do that. 2, no, it isn't all about you. 3, avoid crocodiles at all costs. 4, nobody cares about the pants, man. And 5, stay loyal above all else. Well, that's a tough question. For the high point of my character's life, that's harder. I mean, you start off with the low point. I know right away it was trying to trick the hag. No questions asked. That was the most awful. No, that was for me. For the character, it was the realization of the Harlequin, unquestionably. For me, it was that. But for the character, realizing his best friend has been a lie for years. Y'all can't tell, but I'm looking at Devin. Years. It was so pivotal, so mind blowing, such a changing moment, and the role play that came from that. I told myself I'll squirt a few tears, and I ended up sobbing my eyes out, kind of imagining what it would be like if one of my greatest friends was just lying to me for years to keep an eye on me. It's just horrible. What a great bit of storytelling. I would say that would be his lowest point. His highest point's harder to choose because so many incredible moments happen with the guy, where I meet incredible PCs that tell me cool stuff about him, or like that they respect him or something. I think, though, and this is so silly to say, but I think that for Harold, having the musician guy who ran the music shop, he played that incredible song and got the natural 20 on the way out. Oh, such a great moment. That guy coming to the bar and telling him how incredible a bard he was an incredibly high point for him, because his whole life he's basically said, I'm not really a bard because I never finished the classes. I don't know what I'm doing. I think it was cool to have an actual music expert come to him and be like, you're the greatest bard I've ever heard. And that was probably one of his highest points. How has it affected the way I played the game? Well, I would say that the way it's affected the game, the gameplay the most, is Harold has a deep mistrust of people he just meets. Even though it seems on the surface like he's very pleasant and ready to meet people, there is a layer of distrust with everybody he meets now, because he's been betrayed a few times. So he's like, if you are plotting against him, that's it now. Like, there's no reasoning your way out of it anymore. If he thinks someone's plotting a betrayal, I mean, he's going to go to great lengths to stop that. Even permanent lengths to stop that. I think from the other standpoint, feeling like he's actually a bard has made him more confident in playing music, has made him more confident in being himself. I think it also made him a little bit prouder of his family, which is a whole other mess of explanation. But I think that there's a part of him that feels sort of proud that he didn't feel before, a pride about his music and who he is and his talents. And I think that's a big part of what I'm changing about the role play with him, is trying to maintain this, like, I am a good bard. I do play great music, and I that is a talent no one can take from me. And I think that's really, really fun. For Harold, my favorite natural one. It's so stupid. When Katie Atkins and I were reaching and trying to get the cat, and she rolled a natural one, and then I rolled a natural one, and that cat fucked us up. That might be the greatest natural one in the history of me playing any role-playing game. That, I know it doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of the character, but just like, only V and Harold could be like reaching for a cat and just get their asses kicked. Oh, that's my favorite natural one. I have to say it's probably the natural 20, just because you had more or less made it clear, like, unless you get a natural 20, it ain't gonna sound like the song. And then here comes the natural 20. This guy's just talked trash about my accordion. On the way out the door, I hit him. I don't even think it was the accordion. I think at the time I had the smaller
concertina.
Concertina, thank you. Faceless voice that helped me there. The concertina I had, and for those of you who've never seen one, it has much fewer keys and such. So it was a really, really incredible moment to have this, like, in your face. That was probably still the greatest natural 20 I've rolled in this game. It's so hard to... because so many times when things go wrong, there's a lot of course there's a lot of, if dice rolls didn't matter, and there were things we could change, and why would we change them, and what would we change them to? It's easy to come up with, like, ideas there, but it's hard to imagine that Harold would be the same guy if he didn't make the mistakes he made. It's easy to also say, like, oh, I'd want, obviously, to trick the hat, but I don't really want that. Because things went poorly, it really shaped my roleplay going forward to be like, if we're going to be risky, only risk ourselves. So, if I could change something, I think that I would have... It's so hard to choose! I don't know that there's much I would change. Honestly speaking, if I could go back and fix anything, I don't think that it would have made for as good of a story. I think that almost everything that's gone wrong in Harold's life is something that I'm pretty comfortable with doing. Maybe if I could go back to the vampire lady running the building, like the orphanage. I might have just attacked her on the spot and just lost that fight because Harold was so angry. But I thought I was still pretty good going in there and being like, yeah, I'm on to you and you can't trick me. And like, I'm not like them. Nothing you say is going to work. I still liked that it turned out the way it did, but if I could go back, I probably would have attacked her. And if dice rolls didn't matter, I'd have won. There it is. There you go. Dice rolls don't matter. I win. Through some tricky something, like I pushed a bookcase over. She's like my one weakness, and it like a splinter impaled her in the heart, and she just got staked on the spot, and her lover comes in and is like, crap. I told her not to put that rickety bookcase up. That's what I would change. As a player, my favorite part of the experience is getting to make something I love with people I love. I didn't know anybody but Katie Adkins, Devin, and Dustin before I came on board. Now these people are like my family. Telling stories with them, creating with them, that is the greatest joy. It is the greatest honor. Every day I'm thankful for the fact that like I get to work with professionals on something that's really fun and should be silly, but I feel like they make it so much deeper than that. It really goes to show you how much Dungeons and Dragons can just be about anything, and it can really mean as much as you let it. What is my favorite experience of this whole situation is Harold Hovelton? Goodness gracious. Well, first of all, I'm a part of it. But secondly, I suppose my favorite thing about all of this, the best part of the experience was taking my found family to meet my real family, and on some level almost meshing the two into a greater, larger family. Through their patience and perseverance through all of my many problems, which are very small and I have all under complete control, I think that something that heavy is something that most people would feel uncomfortable or scared to face, and all of them faced it head on with me. And they stopped me from making some big mistakes. I'd say that was it. My family meeting my family. At the beginning of the story, clearly Vio Miliana, we've best friends for a large portion of their lives, and Harold kind of showed her the shittier side, I guess, of Waterdeep, and showed her that a life outside of the palace would be really cool. A palace, but you get the picture. The metaphorical palace, if you will. I would say today it's still Vio Miliana. I think that their friendship is so intrinsic to who they are as people. I think there's a part of them that is still like city folk, that they understand each other on a level of like, we don't really get the whole adventuring thing. We just like to party and go to bars and stuff. I think on some level, through all the hardships, as they both discovered the truths about their families, as they both discovered like the lies that have been told to them through their lives, and as they kind of face it all together, and Harold loves everyone in the party tremendously, but I still feel like V and him are still besties end of the day, and it is such a joy to tell those kind of stories with Katie Atkins, because we're very close friends, and it's really awesome to see it translate so well to the table.
Even closer than Petunia?
Well, I mean, obviously Petunia and him now, I was thinking like immediate cast. If we're talking the entire character, I would say Petunia and him are probably the closest, just because they are in love. And it's so sweet and such a wholesome story. Because everybody always, I think, when they think of the bard, they think of like, here's this character who's like sleeping around and is like, kind of like, just loves like the attention and like being very sexy and sort of thing. And I don't think that, I think Harold, that part of his life is done. And Petunia represents everything that he wished he'd had. So I would say we'll tie it between Petunia and V, because it's best friend and like his one true love, and they both are pretty vitally important to him. Man, you're gonna make me choose my favorite NPC?
Could be your favorite villain or favorite friend.
Oh, don't do that to me. I love them all. Trench is up there. Trench is so far up there. God, I could watch Trench do shit every day of the week. I just want a one-shot where we're all playing Trench's lackeys. I'm almost certain Trench is something diabolically evil. I'm almost certain, but Trench is great. Besides Trench, I'm just going to name a couple. I'm going to name a few, because I don't think I can name one. Trench is huge up there. Manshoon is huge up there. The Jarlaxle is huge up there. The Harlequin is huge up there. I'd say for good people, Trench is my favorite because it's just so funny and so good, and y'all do such a great job with the writing. And like, even when y'all don't have something written, we ask a question. I can always tell when something's not pre-written for him because it'd be like, yep. And that stuff kills me. I think it's brilliant. It is totally in character. I think that's really, really great. And then on the flip side, if I had to pin it down, I'd say the Harlequin. What a horrifyingly awful villain. Somebody I want to fight again. Harold's so much more confident than last he faced him. Now it's going to be like, just shut up and pull out the sword, let's do this. And I'm so ready. So ready.
No, you're not.
I know! I'm terrified! Is it going to still be Trench? No, it's not Trench. Harold's favorite NPC is the Butcher. That guy seems to know everything, and he's so easy to get along with. He's got rules, and he follows the rules. Harold's never questioned his motivations or whatever. The guy is just a resource, and yet there is something vitally dangerous about that man. I can't describe how I know it, but I know it, and I think that every time he shows up, there is a shift in the tone of the whole game, almost as if you're looking into like another universe for a brief moment, like where this guy's life is and what he's doing and everything that goes into that. And it's almost like watching a movie that doesn't explain everything. You know there's little tendrils stretching out, but you don't know where they go. And then you go back to your game, and their game's still happening over here. Every time I come up and meet them, I'm like, they're up to something. I love the Butcher.
Do you think that is influenced because you know the backstory of that character?
100%! But I don't care, he's so cool! It's 100% influenced by the backstory knowing. But I don't care, he's so awesome. Gotta use him more, he's so good. Dead? No. Where do I see Harold in 5 levels? In 5 levels, I imagine Harold, if he isn't dead, which I'm totally okay with. I've thought about, like, what if he dies trying to kill the Harlequin? Oh, wouldn't that be great? No, I don't think he's going to be dead. I think in 5 levels, Harold's going to be focused on... I would like to imagine that maybe he's higher ranked in the Harpers. I imagine that at this point, Manshoon's probably either dealt with or being dealt with. And so his focus now is maintaining that the criminal elements that are in town somehow build upon it rather than tear it down. I think that Harold is in Waterdeep. He lives a life of being like I don't want to say a master spy because that's not it. He's more like a good guy manipulator. I think he wants to marry Petunia. I think that's the first one. I think he wants to do that sooner rather than later because he's afraid he's going to be dead. I think that Harold's personal goals also revolve around getting to a point where he could... This is late, like the next 5 after 15. I think he would be looking for people to train to take their places. Because at a certain point, it's like you do the adventuring to make things better, but also so that you can eventually be done. And I think that Harold, in the long term, is like, I want the world to be safe enough that guys like me aren't necessary. I think other personal goals of his are starring in a show in Waterdeep at some point, but after all this is done. And I think that he also, I guess he imagines, in his later years, actually just running the bar and just being, a personality there at the bar and being... I think that the long-term goal is to live a quiet life with Petunia. And that's really the majority of where he's heading. It's I would love to just hang up the accordion unless I'm playing it for friends, go to the bar and run it, come home to Petunia, we read books together, we go on vacations. I think he wants a taste of the life he's never really had, which is just normal. He just wants some normalcy. And you know what's great about D&D? You ain't getting it anytime soon. I guess maybe if I had to make a hard decision on what I'm looking forward to most next, I am so looking forward to the showdown between the Harlequin and Harold. I don't know what that's going to look like. Or if it's going to be like a 1v1, or if it's the whole group versus him, or if it's like a big group fight and the Harlequin's there. But man, that's going to be a great one. That's going to be a huge fuck you fight. It's going to be great. A lot of sand thrown in the eyes and fingers ripped off and stuff. They're going to be ruthlessly merciless to one another. And I think that what I'm most excited about is to see how the Harlequin changed ever since I almost drowned. I'm excited to see how personal he's taken that, considering when we first met, that dude was so beyond me in terms of combat ability, it wasn't even laughable. I mean, like, it's pathetic if Harold had tried to fight him then. But now, ooh, I can't wait to see where all that goes. That's definitely the thing I'm looking most forward to.
Well, thank you for this inside look into Harold.
What can I say? Harold's insides look beautiful. Wait.